Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome back actually, because the broadcast Tom and I just did is 5 minutes ago. We went to the bathroom, stopped the video, made a new one, and this is the one you see right now. Do not watch this video if you have not seen the part before. And do not watch the part before if you have not seen the very first Roman Catholic Socialist agenda video with Richard Bennett and Tom Friess, an hour and a half. This is now the third one, and now we are going into the reading of the paper of Richard Bennett and probably the paper of Dr. Rahe. Well, you don't know what that is? Well, I'll tell you in a moment because we've come there to read, but before, of course, I start reading, I will welcome Tom Friess back to the broadcast. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Jörg, and I'm very happy to be here, and I hope the listeners are prepared to do some learning because this is a very important subject we're speaking about, and we'll just get to it.
And it is a very important subject not only for us to tell the people, but also for the people to research for themselves. And we are trying to give them all the tools they need for the research, or at least a start, and then they know where to begin, where to start to look at, and from there go on for yourself. Because Tom, you and I, we both profess that only the truth you find for yourself is the truth that has the right and certain ring in your stomach, isn't it?
Yep.
So therefore, we really ask everybody to do their own research and just take what we speak about here as a starting point. Don't believe me, don't believe Tom, don't even believe Richard Bennett if you don't want to. Question everything, that's good. Be a good Berean. I mean, that's the reason Richard Bennett called his website Berean Beacon. Be a good Berean. Bereans are only mentioned once in the Bible, chapter 17 of the book of Acts, verse 11. When Paul and I think Silas or so came from Thessalonica into Berea and found that the Jews there were better Jews than the Jews in Thessalonica because they studied the Bible daily and measured everything in this world against the Word of God. That's what made the difference between the Jews in Berea against the Jews of Thessalonica. And that's what we should do. We are all spiritual Jews. We are all spiritual Israel. And we should measure everything in this world constantly against the Word of God. And if it holds stand, if it is good, okay, practice it, do it, support it. But if it's bad, expose it. As the Bible also says, don't have anything to do with, Tom, how is that verse again? You know that better by heart.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them.
Reprove them, yeah. Thank you.
You can't very well reprove them if you don't expose them.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. That was my point. Good. So let's go into the paper of Richard Bennett. Last time I read to you the little introduction, and from there we go on. The Roman Catholic Socialist Agenda. At the present time, it is becoming more apparent that the Roman Catholic Church is first and foremost a socialist system. For example, on February 10, 2012, Dr. Paul A. Rahe, a practicing Catholic, vehemently criticized its socialist agenda in a widely read article entitled American Catholicism's Pact with the Devil. Now comes a little excerpt from that what he wrote. But that article I found here, because the link Richard Bennett gave years ago is not working anymore. I found a working link, and that is provided to you in the description box of the video. And here, as you can see, from February 11, 2012, Paul A. Rahe, American Catholicism's Pact with the Devil. You can read that for yourself. We will go into that in this broadcast too. But as I said, this or the coming broadcast, I don't know how far we go. But the point is, do your own research and therefore also go into that. And if you want to do a research on Paul A. Rahe, I also think I have a few links. And at least on this video on the main channel, I can share with you, because on the Papacy, the Antichrist channel, I cannot put any working links into the description box of the videos anymore, because YouTube censors me on that. I don't know. They always find a way to do that. This is just extra information. So the article is here, and you can read it for yourself, but Richard Bennett now takes a quote from that Americans' Catholicism's Pact with the Devil. Well, Tom, may I make another little journey before I even read this, because I find this article title so interesting that I have something to say about that. Is it okay if I take a small detour?
Well, certainly. Sure.
American Catholicism's Pact with the Devil. Maybe you have seen this picture already. The Holy Alliance. When United States President Ronald Reagan and the Pope, the reigning Antichrist at that time, John Paul II, made a holy alliance to assist Poland's solidarity movement and hasten the demise of communism. This holy alliance is something that you really need to know. Why? Because it tells you what Richard Bennett just mentioned here, American Catholicism's pact with the devil. How strong is American Catholicism? Is there any American Catholicism? Because after all, America says of itself that it is a Protestant country, right? What is left of that Protestantism? First and for all is one question. And second of all, how is the American government infiltrated with Roman Catholics? Now I want to take the time, and that's why I asked Tom's permission to do that, to do the same thing that Tom did when he read about the page 360, Obama profoundly affected by Roman Catholic teachings. He went into the reading of Rulers of Evil by F. Papacy, the very first chapter. The Holy Alliance, there is the picture in the book, that's why I put the picture here, and the title is Subliminal Rome. Subliminal Rome means the hidden. Bishop Mandel Creighton starts already in his letters with a quote in this chapter where he says, quote, "The Roman Catholic Church is a state." Now, if the Roman Catholic Church is a state, we need to know how powerful is the Roman Catholic Church in politics in the United States of America. We really need to know that, because otherwise we do not understand anything of this article by Dr. Rahe, which Richard Bennett is answering to in his writing here. And the writing of Richard Bennett of the Roman Catholic Socialist agenda can only be understood if you understand the power the Roman Catholic Church, for most of the inhabitants of the United States today, hidden, has already on daily politics. And therefore we need to go into this first chapter. Tom, whenever you want to say something, you interrupt me, okay?
Okay, well, I've got something to say, but I don't want to diminish what you're saying. But on this whole idea of Roman Catholicism or even American Catholicism, because American Catholicism, though it's influenced by Protestantism or limited somewhat by Protestantism, it's still Roman Catholicism. Okay, the American Roman Catholic Church is none at all different from the Roman Catholic Church. They're still Roman Catholics. All right, the point I want to make is, talking about this pact with the devil, I want to remind the listeners that the devil himself proposed to Christ that he showed him all the kingdoms of this world and the glory of them all. And the devil said to Jesus, "To them, or to you, I will give them all the kingdoms of this world, all the glory of them all. I will give them all to you if you'll just bow down and worship me." Now, we all know Jesus didn't do that. Jesus didn't bow down and worship him. Do you think the devil didn't make that same proposition to someone else? He did. And he's identified in the scripture as the man of sin, the son of perdition, the Antichrist, the beast, and we know that to be the Antichrist of Rome, the papacy. It's the papacy who was proposed by the devil. See all the kingdoms of this world and the glory of them all. To you I will give them if you will just bow down and worship me. That's the pact between the man of sin in Rome and the devil. Okay? And that's how we know, and by many other concrete evidences and proofs, the papacy is indeed the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords in this world. That's why I rightly call him the God of this world. The devil has made a pact with him. The papacy sold his soul to the devil, and he worships the devil, he serves the devil, and he rules this world religiously and politically. Now, back to you, Jörg.
And that is exactly what we are going to prove with the upcoming reading, Tom. Thank you very much for your explanation. But I really find it profoundly interesting that we go into this very first chapter of the book Rulers of Evil. When a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter announced in his 1992 Time magazine cover story that a quote-unquote conspiracy binding President Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul II into a quote-unquote secret holy alliance, as you can see in the picture here, had brought about the demise of communism, at least one reader saw through the hype. Professor Carol A. Brown of the University of Massachusetts fired off a letter to Time's editor saying, "Last week I taught my students about the separation of church and state. This week I learned that the Pope is running US foreign policy. No wonder our young people are cynical about American ideals." Now, another little detour to provide another proof of this. From the book Code Word Babylon, Book 2 of 2, Antichrist is a Woman, Alive and Well Again, page 361, the beginning of chapter 54, called Obama, Profoundly Affected by Roman Catholic Teachings. And we are dealing with Obama. You saw the picture of the article from Dr. Rai, which starts with the picture of Obama. It's about the time of 2012. So this is all coming together. This chapter starts with a quote from President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, done at the Columbia University on November 13th, 1963, about 10 days before his assassination on November 22nd. What did John F. Kennedy say to the regard what we are talking here about? Now it becomes interesting. John F. Kennedy said, quote, "The high office of president has been used to foment a plot to destroy the Americans' freedom, and before I leave office, I must inform the citizen of this plight." Unquote. Now, what you read now here in Rulers of Evil all becomes even more logical, I hope. So let's continue. What Brown learned from Carl Bernstein I had discovered for myself over several years of private investigation. The papacy really does run United States foreign policy, and always has. Yes. Bernstein noted that the leading American players behind the Reagan-Vatican conspiracy to a man were quote-unquote devout Roman Catholics, namely, and today in 2023, we even have history to see how many of these people advanced their careers. William Casey, director of CIA. And Tom, please fill in if you want to add anything like Knights of Malta and all that stuff, because you have more background knowledge of these Americans than I have here in this regard.
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth. They're either Knights of Malta or high-ranking Freemasons. They serve the papacy. But go ahead.
Yeah, we have to understand, of course, that Freemasonry is completely run by the Jesuit order. Freemasonry is just another arm of Roman Catholicism. Yeah? So when they clap their hands together, you know who's in between there. Protestants being killed by clapping the hands. Anyway, William Casey, director of the CIA. Richard Allen, National Security Advisor. Judge William Clark, National Security Advisor. Alexander Haig, Secretary of State. Vernon Walters, Ambassador at Large. And William Wilson, Ambassador to the Vatican State. By the way, this William Wilson is the first ambassador to the Vatican State, official, since the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Because in 1867, after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the United States of America broke every official tie, thank you, with the Vatican. And they had no ambassador there anymore. Officially, okay? We all know that presidents like Woodrow Wilson and so had a personal secretary, a personal representative there, which is
Mandel House.
Mandel House, yeah, which is the same thing. It was just not officially. But the very first American president who officially renewed the
ambassadorship.
Ambassadors, thank you. I just can come to my word at that sometimes. The political relations through an official ambassador with the Vatican was Ronald Reagan, the traitor. Yeah, who, and another thing, and that is something Tom told me. He read about that years ago. That in a private meeting between Pope John Paul II and Ronald Reagan went on his knees and said to the quote-unquote Holy Father, I give you my country. He's one of the biggest traitors America ever had. Yep. And this William Wilson was the first ambassador to the Vatican State, introduced by Ronald Reagan again. But the reporter neglected to mention that the entire Senate Foreign Relations Committee was governed by Roman Catholics as well. Specifically senators, and now pay attention to the names. Joseph Biden. Who is he in 2023? Here he was on the subcommittee on European Affairs. Paul Sabarnis, International Economic Policy, Trade, Oceans and Environment. Daniel P. Moynihan, Near Eastern and South Asian Affairs. John Kerry, remember him? Terrorism, Narcotics and International Communications. And didn't he become Secretary of State or something under Obama or so, John Kerry? Tom?
Yes, he was Secretary of, he was an ambassador. I can't remember. John Kerry has been widely used by this government.
Yeah.
And John Kerry was a Skull and Bonesman. It was a which is a Freemasonic institution. It's just Freemasonry by another name.
Yeah, that was the joke election of 2004, sure. Where one bonesman ran against another bonesman. Huh?
Yeah.
George W. Bush against John Kerry. Well, Skull and Bones always wins.
That's right.
And Christopher Dart, Western Hemisphere and Peace Corps Affair. Bernstein would have been wandering off point to list the Roman Catholic leaders of American domestic policy, such as Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell and Speaker of the House Tom Foley. In fact, when the Holy Alliance story hit the stands, there was virtually no arena of federal legislative activity. According to the 1992 World Almanac of U.S. politics, that was not directly controlled by a Roman Catholic senator or representative. Now, what does he say here? There was no arena of federal legislative activity that was not directly controlled by a Roman Catholic. So, who makes the policy in the United States of America? The
Who
committees.
makes the laws of this country?
Yeah, exactly.
Every legislative institution in this country is run and controlled by Roman Catholics who serve the man of sin in Rome, the lawgiver, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And they're all commanded to use their vocations and avocations to help elevate the papacy to global supremacy. King of Kings and Lord of Lords status. That's why every institution in Congress, every committee, every branch of our government is headed up by a Knight of Malta, high-level Freemason, of anybody of these secret societies that are all concordant orders, that is secret society orders in concord, in agreement with the Vatican. They all serve the Vatican. They take on different names, different identities, different secret societies, but they all serve the papacy. The papacy's got unlimited numbers of auxiliary, missionary organizations, orders of monks, orders of nuns, secret societies, all of them serving the papacy. And of course, many of them even appear to be charitable Protestant organizations, but they're all carrying out a Vatican agenda with or without their knowledge. They all serve the papacy. And Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Freemasonry, Skull and Bones, you just name them, they've all got a direct link or an indirect link to the Vatican. They all serve the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the God of this world. And if you can't believe that, if you simply will not believe that, then you just as well throw your Bible away, because the Bible tells us that there be 4 world governments before Christ returns: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then Rome. Rome was in power at the time that Jesus walked the streets of Jerusalem, and Rome is in power even unto this day without interruption. And we're seeing this in everything we're showing you. You cannot deny these facts. Rome never fell. It's still the governing. Look, just ask yourself, has Christ returned? If not, then Rome still rules. And you've just got to wrap your brain around this, or you'll never understand what's happening in this world and who's leading us down the primrose path to perdition. Back to you, Yerk.
Thank you very much, Tom. I'm so glad that I have you on this broadcast with your eloquent speech and to really bring it down to the people, to the point that even no writer can do in this regard as good as you can do that. Very glad to have you, Tom. Papacy continues in his book, The Committees and Subcommittees of the United States Senate and House Representatives governing commerce, communications, and telecommunications. Sorry, I was a little lost in the sentence here. United States Senate and House Representatives governing commerce, communications, and telecommunications, energy, medicine, health, medicine. Think of the pandemic a few years ago, and the coming pandemic, of course. Health, education and welfare, human services, consumer protection, finance and financial institutions, transportation, labor and unemployment, hazardous materials, taxation, bank regulation, currency and monetary policy, oversight of the Federal Reserve System. And don't break our mouth open going into that, because that will take another few hours. Commodity prices, rents, services, small business administration, urban affairs, European affairs, Near Eastern and South Asian affairs, terrorism, narcotics, international communications, international economic trade, oceans, environmental policy, insurance, housing, community development, federal loan guarantees. Think of the uh, bubble you had in 2008. Huh? Who did that? Federal loan guarantees? Huh? Economic stabilization measures, including wage and price controls, gold and precious metals transactions, agriculture, animal and forestry industries, rural issues, nutrition, price supports, food for peace, agricultural exports, soil conservation, irrigation, stream channelization, flood control, minority enterprise, environment and pollution, appropriations, defense, foreign operations, vaccines, drug labeling and packaging, drug and alcohol abuse, inspection and certification of fish and processed food, use of vitamins and saccharin, national health insurance proposals, human services, legal services, family relations, the arts and humanities, the handicapped and aging. In other words, virtually every aspect of secular life in America came under the chairmanship of one of these Roman Catholic laypersons. Now, it is important to understand the author speaks of Roman Catholic laypersons. Why? We will see in a moment. I'm not going through all these names. You can read them for yourself. The book is free available on the internet. But
May I make
it
a
is
comment?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. This article, this paragraph that Yerk just read, right out of the book Rulers of Evil. Now just read Revelation chapter 18 in its entirety. There's your confirmation. Just take this chapter and read it, what Yerk just read to you, how the Vatican, through our government and through the Roman Catholics in our government, controls all these aspects of our existence in this country. Now just read Revelation chapter 18. Confirms everything that Tupper Saucy revealed in that paragraph.
I have that right here. Shall I read it?
Well, certainly.
Okay. Chapter 18 of the book of Revelation. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth were waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself, and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burnt with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her, and when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city! For in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth her merchandise any more. the merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and of pearls, fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet, and all thine wood, and all manners of vessels of Uri. I don't know that Uri what that is, but okay, it's correct, Uri, because sometimes the Bible uses a strange word. And all manners of vessels of Uri, and all manner of vessels of most precious wood, and of brass, and iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves, and souls of men.
And the souls of men. Go ahead, Yerk.
And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster, and all the company in ships, and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And the mighty angel took up a stone like a great milestone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of the harpers and musicians, and of the pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And no craftsman, of whatever craft he be, shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets, and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth.
Okay, I have some comments now to tie this all up for the listeners. Your book, Rulers of Evil, shows you Roman Catholics and those who serve the Roman Catholic Church in control of every department in our government and how they control the goods of this country. Okay? Every department controls the commerce of this country, the goods and services of this country. And they're all spelled out for you right there in Revelation chapter 18. Okay? And everything that the merchants of the earth have to do with, those who have ships on the sea that transport all these goods, they're controlled by the Vatican through the government of the United States that are controlled by Roman Catholics in that government. That's how the papacy, sees all the kingdoms of this world and the glory of them all. To you I will give them if you'll just bow down and worship me. That's what the papacy does, bows down and worships the devil, and the devil empowers him through Roman Catholics to control all the goods and all the services from the government of the United States of America. And when Christ returns, all of Rome's control is going to be destroyed. All of Rome's trafficking in the goods and services of this world are going to end. and there, with one, as if it, with one stone, Rome will be destroyed. The stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands is going to strike the image in the feet of it and going to grind it to powder, and it will blow away with the wind. Now you know that Babylon that's spoken of in Revelation chapter 18 speaks of none other than the Babylon of Rome. It's the culmination that began with Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar and passed through the Medes and the Persians and transferred to the Greeks and finally controlled by Rome, who still controls it today. It's the Babylonian system. It's culminated in the Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order. It is global. It encompasses every man, woman, and child on this planet, every government of the world, every department of every government. And you can see it with your own eyes if you're just willing enough to open them up and to open your ears and see and hear for yourself Bible prophecy being fulfilled. That's what F. Tupper Saucy opened up in his book, Rulers of Evil. That's what P.D. Stewart opened up in his 2-volume book or 3-volume book, Code Word Babylon. The truth is out there, and it's consistent with the Scripture. Now we know who the Antichrist is, and now we know who the governments of this world serve. They do not serve Christ any more than Ronald Reagan served Christ when he turned around on his knees before Pope John Paul II, rather Antichrist Pope John Paul II, and said, quote unquote, "Holy Father, I give you my country." Ronald Reagan isn't the only one. They all serve the papacy. They all give their power and strength unto the beast. It's biblical, and it's fulfilled a long time ago. Don't look for a future Antichrist. You will be deceived. Back to you, Jörg.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. I think the little quote I read here from John F. Kennedy made the point quite well. That there is a leader of the United States of America that comes not from America. The high office of president has been used to foment a plot to destroy the Americans' freedom, and before I leave office I must inform the citizen of this plight.
Now, what was he telling the American citizens? What was he telling the Vatican? He was telling the Vatican publicly for all the world to hear that he was going to expose Rome's control of our government. Now you know why they killed him, and now you know why they continue to cover it up.
And he called it in another speech the monolithic conspiracy. The only term you can describe the Jesuits with without naming them.
That's right. Yep.
This is really a very profound and deep subject we are going into, right?
That's right.
So let's read on in Rulers of Evil. What else has Tupper Saucy to say? As I said, I don't mention all the names. You can read it for yourself. But the important point is, virtually every aspect of secular life in America came under the chairmanship of one of these Roman Catholic laypersons. Then read the names, but then, now comes the hammer. Vatican Council I-Peace Constitution of the Church in 1964 means the constitution during the Second Vatican Council between 1962 and 1965. The damnable ecumenical council after that all Protestant churches capitulated to the Roman Catholic Church, to the Church of Antichrist. This Vatican Council's Constitution of the Church instructs. It doesn't advise. It instructs. It orders is another word.
That's right.
Politicians to use their secular offices to advance the cause of Roman Catholicism. Do you know what happens when you hold one of these offices and you do not advance the cause of Roman Catholicism? You whether lose your office or your wife or your life.
That's right.
You will just not go on doing this, and there are numerous examples.
In other words,
I'm just going to give you one famous one. The leader of the what was it? Um, International Monetary Fund, Strauss, that guy, some years ago. They bring him to fall, and afterward Lagarde came and took his place, who was charged with quote unquote sexual relations with a worker of a hotel in New York while he was there. That is just one example. When you go against the Roman Catholic agenda in whatever way, you will lose your office at least, probably lose your family, lose your riches, and in worst case, even lose your life.
In worst case, you could be JFK'd.
Yeah, right. Catholic laypersons, the author continues, quote, whoever they are called upon to expend all their energy, not a little here and there, all the energy, for the growth of the Church, Roman Catholic Church that is, and its continuous sanctification. End quote. To make the Church present and operative in those places and circumstances where only through them can it become the salt of the earth. Unquote. Vatican II further instructs all Catholics, quote, by their competence in secular disciplines and by their activity to vigorously contribute their efforts so that the goods of this world, Caritas in
Revelation chapter
Veritate,
18.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Caritas in Veritate and Revelation 18, as Tom rightfully says, the goods of this world may be more equitably distributed among all men. Well, that's Caritas in Veritate. That is, you will own nothing and be happy. Charity and truth, and may in their own way be conducive to universal progress in human and Christian freedom, and to remedy the customs and conditions of the world if there are an inducement to sin, so that they all may be conformed to the norms of justice and may favor the practice of virtue rather than hinder it. Unquote. Vatican Council II affirms Catholic doctrine dating back to 1302, when Antichrist Pope Boniface VIII asserted that, quote, it is absolutely necessary for the salvation of every human creature to be subject to the Roman Pontiff. Unquote.
That's right. To be saved, let me put it in terms that you can understand. I don't want one single listener to miss what was just said by this Antichrist, Pope Benedict the
Boniface VIII.
Boniface VIII, for crying out loud. It is absolutely necessary for every human creature to be subject to the Roman Catholic Pontiff. In other words, if you're going to be saved, you have to be a submissive subject of the Pope. Okay? That's the New World Order. If there's any salvation for you in this world, you have to be loyally subject to the God of this world, the man of sin, the son of perdition. That's the New World Order. Okay? Christ is going to be thrown out, just like God's law was thrown out. And now we must serve the man of sin in Rome. That is the New World Order. And your government is implementing his control of this country. Your elected government. Remember, every time you go to the polls, no matter who you vote for, Democratic or Republican, they're all serving the papacy. You are putting legitimacy with your vote to these Roman Catholic political hacks. And you think you're doing your patriotic duty to go to the polls. You're electing the man of sin to run this country. You are handing your country over to the papacy, lock, stock, and barrel when you go to the polls. Because you don't have a Bible believer to vote for. You don't have a Protestant to vote for. You don't have a follower of Jesus Christ to vote for. The kings of this world and the kingdoms of this world and the glory of them all have been given to the papacy. So whoever you vote for in this country or around the world is going to serve the papacy, or he's going to be JFK'd or caught in bed with an intern against his wife and is going to be destroyed one way or another. And we read it in the papers all the time. If you do not loyally serve the institution in Rome by dutifully serving him in politics, you will be destroyed. Even at broad daylight, at high noon, with cameras rolling, nobody will go to jail, and your assassin will be protected for the rest of the time, forever. That's what happened to JFK. He was going to out the Vatican. He was going to out the Jesuits for controlling this country. He was going to out his own Roman Catholic Church for controlling the government of this country. He threatened it openly, and they killed him just as openly. And they're still protecting it. Why? Because the Vatican's going to run this country till Christ returns. That's biblical. You cannot challenge that without destroying the foundation of our faith. The man of sin will rule as King of Kings and Lord of Lords until Christ returns. Now, do you still believe in a future Antichrist that's never been revealed? You've been lied to your entire Christian life. And you got nobody to blame but your own pastors. Back to you, Jörg.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. Going to continue for a moment in this wonderful book that both you and I read. I even read it in the German translation, which we did, and it is also translated into Dutch. So if anybody watching this video wants to have this book in Dutch or in German, go to my archive and there you can download it for free. The English version too, by the way. It is absolutely necessary for the salvation of every human creature to be subject to the Roman pontiff. That is in the bull Unam Sanctam, which picture you see here from 1302. This was the inspiration for the papacy to create the United States of America that materialized in 1776 by a process just as secret as the Reagan-Vatican production of Eastern Europe in 1989. What? American government Roman Catholic from the beginning? Consider. The land known today as the District of Columbia bore the name Rome in 1663 property records. And the branch of the Potomac River that bordered Rome on the south was called Tiber. This information was reported in the 1902 edition of the Catholic Encyclopedia's article of Daniel Carroll. The article specifically declaring itself, quote, of interest to Catholics, unquote, in the 1902 edition was deleted from the new Catholic Encyclopedia in 1967. And this is something where I want to end this with, because we read the important part of this book, of the first chapter. You can read the whole book, as I said, when you download it for free. You can buy the book still to have a copy and hold a copy in your hands. Me and Tom both have a few copies, I guess, at house. It is one of the most important books I've ever read. But the point that the author makes here, you have the 1902 edition of the Catholic Encyclopedia, and you have the 1967 edition. I have the 1913 edition here in my cupboard, and I know that the coronation oath of the King of England has been changed And you can only see that when you have the 1913 printed edition, which I hold here. I don't hold it here in my hands, but I have it here in my house. And I read it and I studied it for a part. Things that are interesting. You don't study an encyclopedia from A to Z. And I know that the text differs from the same encyclopedia when you look it up on newadvent.org, which is the Roman Catholic website of the Catholic Encyclopedia today and on the internet. And when you read there the 1913 edition, the text of the coronation oath differs. And what differs? Well, do your own research. I don't need to tell you everything. Anyway, we are going back to Richard Bennett's paper, but on the online version. This is where I read. Excuse me for the confusion, but this is live. We didn't go to some kind of tests before. So, for example, on February 10, 2012, Dr. Paul A. Rahe, a practicing Catholic, vehemently criticized its socialist agenda in a widely read article entitled American Catholicism's Pact with the Devil. And I think we made the point now that you understand what American Catholicism's pact with the devil is among the Holy Alliance and other things that we just read to you. He stated, quote, "In my lifetime, to my increasing regret," because he is a Roman Catholic, "the Roman Catholic Church in the United States has lost much of its moral authority. It has done so largely because it has subordinated its teaching of Catholic moral doctrine to its ambitions regarding an expansion of the administrative entitlement state. In 1973, when the Supreme Court made its decision in Roe versus Wade, I mentioned that here, that was about the abortion, had the bishops, priests and nuns screamed bloody murder and declared war, as they have recently done, the decision would have been reversed. Instead, under the leadership of Joseph Bernardin, the Cardinal Bishop of Chicago, and I have a picture of him here, they asserted that the social teaching of the Church was a quote-unquote seamless garment, and they treated abortion as one concern among many." So here you have a picture of this Joseph Bernardin, Cardinal Bishop of Chicago. And I also have a picture of the author of this article, American Catholicism's Pact with the Devil, Dr. A. Rahe, and that is Paul A. Rahe, as you can see here. He is professor of history and political science in Hillsdale College. He has a very interesting, how do you say that, run of life, education and places of teaching and all that stuff. And you can read that. I will provide some links that you don't have to do all the research by yourself. I will provide the links. Reading, you read, you must them yourselves, and understand, you must them yourself. So this is all in this regard. Rahe, Richard Bennett continues, Rahe is exactly right in his estimation that the Catholic Church has, quote, subordinated its teaching of Catholic moral doctrine to its ambitions regarding an expansion of the administrative entitlements state, unquote. However, Cardinal Bernardin was acting in accord with the major thrust of the Vatican. The Catholic agenda has not changed since Cardinal Bernardin's time. Indeed, the Catholic Church subordinates not only its moral teaching, but also the very gospel of grace to its social teaching. Furthermore, official Vatican dogma declares that Catholic social doctrine is a valid instrument of evangelization. So when you never see a Roman Catholic come knocking at your door and ask you to become a Christian, that is because they use their social doctrine as an instrument of evangelization and not going from door to door and bringing the gospel, the true gospel, to people. By the way, Tom, I thought it may be interesting to go a little bit into the quote of Mr. Rahe, yeah, Dr. Rahe, when he says, "In my lifetime, to my increasing regret, the Roman Catholic Church in the United States has lost much of its moral authority." Tom, don't we have anything to say about the quote-unquote moral authority or the morals of the Roman Catholic Church?
Well, the best way to answer that question is, what moral authority could the Church of Antichrist have? What
Only an
what
assumed one.
moral authority could the synagogue of Satan have? It has never had any moral authority. What moral authority could the Roman Catholic Church have if it abolished entirely God's holy, immutable, perfect law of liberty? What moral authority could the Church of Rome have when it's headed up by a man who calls himself the vicar or the replacement of Christ? What moral authority could the papacy have if he calls himself sweet God on earth and requires every man, woman, and child on the planet to serve him, not the God of creation? The Roman Catholic Church has never had any moral authority. Oh, you can convince ignoramuses that he has moral authority by telling them that, oh, they lead the war against abortion. That just makes the superficial the superficial people believe in the moral authority of the Roman Catholic Church. Well, let me tell you something. It was revealed by Avro Manhattan in his book, The Vatican Billions, that it was the Vatican Bank that financed the research that gave us the birth control pill. Okay? Now, something else you need to know is the birth control pill does not prevent conception. Conception takes place as normal, but it dies in the womb. So every pregnancy that takes place when a woman is on the Roman Catholic birth control pill kills this baby. Okay? You said thou shalt not kill in God's holy, immutable law that Rome has done away with. Rome has killed every baby that has been conceived while taking the birth control pill. Rome financed it. Rome owns it. It's their pill. What moral authority could the Church of Antichrist have? That agenda that was started by the devil and the man of sin, because Jesus wouldn't bow down and worship him. There is no moral authority in the Roman Catholic Church. There never has been any moral authority in the Roman Catholic Church, any more than Satan himself has moral authority. Now do you see why I say repeatedly, anyone who calls the Roman Catholic Church or any pope or any priest or any nun a Christian, you've blasphemed the name of God by calling the Roman Catholic Church a Christian church. Now you're saying, oh, Tom, that's too heavy-handed. Well, then you write your own Bible, because you've rejected God's Bible. The God of creation has revealed unmistakably who the Antichrist is. And history has confirmed every prophecy that was ever written about the man of sin, the son of perdition. It's inarguable. It's a slam dunk. You can't argue about it. You can't contradict it. You can't gainsay it. You can't sweep it under the rug. The papacy is, was, and always will be the Antichrist, and the Roman Catholic Church is, was, and always will be the synagogue of Satan and the center of religious and political power in the world, the whole world without exception. I'm sorry to be the bearer of such bad tidings. And if you've never heard any of this before, you can blame your own pastors. Back to you, Jörg.
Thank you very much, Tom. So going so deep into the moral authority, I think a last point that we want to mention before we close this broadcast and then postpone it, of course, to another one, because you see the article is still long and we haven't even touched on Dr. Rahe's American Catholicism's Pact with the Devil. So this is going to take a while before we get through it. But one last point, Tom, that I want to address before we go out here is not the moral authority, but is the moral teaching of Rome. You and I, we call ourselves Bible-believing Christians. And our standard for moral is the Bible, and the Bible alone, the Word of God and nothing else. But the Roman Catholic Church has some quote-unquote doctors through the ages that wrote extensively on the morals of the Roman Catholic Church. So when the author here speaks that the Catholic Church has lost much of its moral authority, it is also necessary to busy oneself with what does the Roman Catholic Church have for morals? What morals is the Roman Catholic Church teaching? And do these morals of the Roman Catholic Church's teaching hold up against the teaching of the Bible? Again, be a good Berean. You have to go into readings like from Alfonso Liguori, Suarez, Busenbaum, and many, many more.
Bellarmine.
And Bellarmine, yeah. And I think that Tom has an interesting point to make, the final point of this video. So Tom, I introduced you to the last subject you can address on, and after that we'll postpone to the next reading. Thank you very much, Tom, for your contribution. Wonderfully, I want to listen to what you have to say on the moral doctors of the Roman Catholic Church.
Well, they're called by the Roman Catholic Church and by all Protestant and evangelical churches as the church, the Holy Fathers of the Church. The Holy Church Fathers, right? You've heard their names: Origen, Tertullian, all of them. I can't recite them all. They were all heretics. Sure, they spoke truths about certain things, but they were all wrong. They all contradicted one another. They all argued one another. They took turns calling one another heretic. There was no unity among these so-called Holy Church Fathers. All you have to do is look past the surface and really study the names and what they taught and what they meant, and you'll see for yourself. They were heretics. From these so-called Holy Church Fathers, this is where we get the Roman Catholic Mass even. That the wafer of the Roman Catholic Church is a sacrifice. That Jesus is a perpetual sacrifice? How could that be? And still regarded as Christians when the Bible plainly tells us of Messiah the Prince in Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 through 27, that he, in the midst of the week, in the midst of the 70th and final week of Daniel's prophecy, would cause the sacrifices and oblations to cease. That's what Jesus did when he gave up his own life and became the sacrifice to end all sacrifices. When he became the bread of life. when he became the propitiation for our sins, when he became the Redeemer, the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. He became the reconciliation for iniquity. He fulfilled Daniel's prophecy, the 70th week of Daniel, perfectly and completely. But these so-called holy church fathers taught lies. And out of their teaching came the Roman Catholic Church. And Paul warned with tears and letters over and over and over. He prayed for the saints that they would soon be deceived, that there would come a great falling away from the faith, and then that man of sin would be revealed. It was that great falling away that culminated in the rise of the papacy. And the rise of the papacy came about because of the heretical teaching of the so-called Holy Church Fathers. And it isn't just the Roman Catholic Church that holds up these Roman Catholic Holy Church Fathers. It's the Protestant evangelical churches too. There's no refuge for you in any of the churches. There is no refuge for anyone in any of the churches. Back to you.